Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Trish Cousins. I'm a finance and loan analyst on the Lender and Partner Activities branch, and I'm excited to talk to you all about GUS today. So thanks for joining us. We are going to go over the Guaranteed Underwriting System, aka GUS. So let's get started. Rural development uses a system called GUS, which stands for Guaranteed Underwriting System. We do love our acronyms. So all qualifying files must be submitted through GUS. We do cover files that are not required to be submitted through GUS later in the presentation, but those are actually even started in GUS. So it's important that all information entered into GUS is accurate and matches the RD Form 355521, along with any other documentation submitted. And I like to remind garbage in, garbage out. You do not want a GUS accept recommendation based on information that you cannot support. Another really important thing to note is that GUS does not underwrite loans. It's used to evaluate the credit risk of the borrower, but GUS does not replace the judgment of an experienced underwriter. Not sure why my slides are skipping ahead. Sorry about that. GUS incorporates a modified version of the FHA total scorecard, but does not evaluate the dependability of repayment income. We count on the lenders to make sure all file submissions have been reviewed by an underwriter to ensure they qualify for our program. So when a file is submitted for final submission, you're telling rural development that this file has been underwritten and that it meets rural development regulations as spelled out in 7 CFR 3555, Handbook 1 3555, and the GUS findings. Gaining access to GUS. So before you begin, I recommend that you explore your resources. You're going to need them along the way. A useful tool to start with is the Gaining Access to GUS guide, which is available on the Link Training and Resource Library page under the GUS tab. You're going to start by completing the required training to obtain access to GUS. The Link Training and Resource Library page has numerous tools available to our lending partners. You'll locate the required GUS training tab under, the required GUS training under the Guaranteed Underwriting System GUS tab. Here you will also find multiple resource guides and helpful documents. There are multiple modules to complete in addition to what is on this slide. We recently switched from requiring new user setup to requiring that the new user set up an e-authentication account to now requiring a login with Login.gov. So if you've not set yours up, this training will give you the guidance on setting up your Login.gov account. You'll start at the Lender Interactive Network Connection website. This is the one that you want to have as a bookmark. Most things GUS will start here. So you do not start at the Login.gov. You start in at the Lender Interactive Network Connection or the link website. So when you're at the Lender Interactive Network Connection website link, then you'll select the single family housing rural program that you'll be utilizing. So in this case, that will be the Guaranteed Underwriting System or GUS. Doing it this way versus going straight to the Login.gov. So doing it this way, it actually links your Login.gov ID to GUS. So it's really important that you start at the Lender Interactive Network Connection website. So once there, it's going to give you some options, and you'll select the customer option. So at the customer option, at the customer login, you will click the Login.gov option, and it'll direct you to the Login.gov website to create a new account. You'll need to follow the steps to create your Login.gov account, including setting up either a non-verified level 1 or a verified level 2 access. Next, it will return you to the e-authentication site, and this is where you'll link your new Login.gov account to your old e-authentication account if you have one. So once the accounts are set up and linked, if you had an e-authentication account, you will either receive an error message of that you have no roles in GUS or that you have no access. At this point, you'll need to determine, are you a third-party originator or a direct lender? So at this time, the lender can give a role to the user, or USDA can give an admin role. So if you have a previous e-authentication account that you need to link, then you're going to refer to the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Loan Division System Access and Security Guide. The System Access and Security Guide is a helpful document that will walk you through the process step by step. I've also included a link to it on this slide. So if you're a third-party originator or a mortgage broker, once you've finished the required training, you'll create your Login.gov or link your current e-authentication ID in Login.gov if you haven't already. Then you'll reach out to your lender of choice, one of our approved lenders, and you'll provide the approved lender's security administrator with your Login.gov email address. If you have an existing role in the system with an e-authentication account, you will use that information rather than your Login.gov email. So if you're set up with another lender already and you've got that e-authentication account set up in the system, then that's the information you'll get versus the Login.gov. So then at this point, the approved lender will set you up with a lender agent role in GUS. And then I've included a link to the System Access and Security Guide on this slide, and there are step-by-step instructions in the guide to set up your Login.gov account on pages 17 through 13. So if you're a direct lender working for a USDA approved lender, once you've created your Login.gov or linked your current e-authentication ID in Login.gov, you'll reach out to your GUS security administrator and provide them with your Login.gov ID or your current e-authentication information, and they'll set you up in GUS. And again, a link to the System Access and Security Guide is on this slide, and there's step-by-step instructions on pages 7 through 13 for this. The GUS User Guide is extremely helpful. You can find it in GUS under the User Guide tab or on the Link Training and Resource Library page under the GUS tab. It'll walk you step by step through the screens in GUS. And I use this document frequently when I get calls from lenders that are struggling to maneuver in GUS. I'll have this guide open on one screen while I'm looking through GUS with the lender on the other screen. So it's really a helpful tool. Remember I said earlier, once your Login.gov is set up, if you try to log into GUS, you'll receive an error. This is the error, and if at any time you try to log into GUS without roles set up, or if the roles have been changed for you in GUS, then you'll receive the following error. And if this error pops up, then as a third-party originator or a broker, you'll actually reach out to the approved lender that you're working with to be assigned roles in GUS as a lender agent. As a direct lender, you'll reach out to your GUS security administrator for your company to be assigned roles in GUS. Unfortunately, this is not something that we can do for you at Rural Development, so you need to either reach out to the approved lender or your GUS security administrator at your current company. So what roles can be assigned in GUS? The security or branch administrator role, this is the only user role in GUS that is actually assigned by Rural Development. They have full authority in GUS, including assigning GUS roles for their staff and third-party originators. We do recommend that lenders have at least 2 security administrators in case one of them is out or has a change in position or no longer works with GUS and no longer works with GUS. In that case, you'll want to look for another person to fill that newly vacated role so that you always have a minimum of 2 people on hand that can assign roles in GUS. The representative with final submit authority, typically this is an underwriter, a team leader, a manager. They can import or manually input applications. They certify that the loan has been underwritten. They confirm that the data is accurate and consistent with the loan file, and perform preliminary and or final submissions. And then we have the representative or lender agent broker. Typically, this would be a processor, loan officer, or a third-party originator. They can import or manually input applications, and they can run preliminary submissions. Okay, now that you have access to GUS and roles have been assigned, how are you going to enter GUS? So if you have saved a direct link to the GUS website on your computer, you're going to want to change that. We request that you bookmark the Lender Interactive Network connection. This will ensure that you always connect directly to the most recent version of GUS. So once at the Lender Interactive Network connection page, you've got it bookmarked, you're going to select the Guaranteed Underwriting System or the GUS option. I have a little box around it here. If you use a direct link to GUS that you saved on your computer and for some reason something has changed, then this is an error that you would receive. It reads bad request. So if you receive this error, then you need to go to the Lender Interactive Network connection website and enter GUS from there. You can either import your application into GUS from your loan origination system, or you can manually input the application into GUS. The GUS Lender User Guide gives step-by-step instructions to do both. And again, it can be found either under the GUS tab on the Link Training and Resource Library page or under the User Guides tab in GUS. Once your application has been fully input or imported, you can run GUS, and it'll give you one of three recommendations: either accept full documentation, refer, or refer with caution. So first you want to review your findings, even for a GUS accept, to see if it's a GUS accept with full documentation review. These are files that have been randomly selected for a data integrity review. A refer or refer with caution, they require further review and will require a full document submission. You want to be sure to review the GUS findings report and submit the documentation accordingly. We recommend that you utilize the attachment 15A with all submissions, including a GUS accept. And just remember that files that are incomplete will be released back to the lender, put on hold, and it will create delays for you and your borrower. Regardless of the GUS underwriting recommendation, you'll upload all documents via the GUS application. So now you can also receive an ineligible response as well, and I'm going to get to that a little bit further in the session. A GUS accept requires the least number of documents. It requires the appraisal, all pages with color photos, the flood certification, the RD Form 3555. You want to make sure that it's filled out completely and accurately. And then there are just a few additional documents, if applicable, such as the non-purchasing spouse credit report and a mortgage payoff for a refinance. There are times that you'll have a GUS accept that will be a full documentation review. This is where the system randomly selects GUS accept files for a quality assurance or data integrity review. If the file is a GUS accept with full doc review, it'll always show on the findings report. So make sure, even on GUS accept, that you always review your findings. So for a GUS accept with full documentation, you're going to upload the following. You're going to upload the appraisal. Again, be sure to make sure that all pages have been uploaded, that they're legible, and that there's color photos. You're going to upload all income and asset documentation. Your flood certification, your RD Form 355521 filled out completely and accurately. Your income calculation sheet, either the attachment 9B or a lender's income calculation sheet if you have one. We need you to show us how you came up with your income. Your 1003, 1008, the residential loan application, and your underwriting analysis forms, and then any additional items if applicable. And I want to remind you to be sure to utilize the attachment 15A loan origination checklist. For GUS refer files, it's not a reason to deny the loan. It just means that GUS has identified some risk factors. So you'll want to review the findings to determine whether the borrower actually qualifies for a loan with rural development. A refer or refer with caution file is a manually underwritten file that must be fully reviewed by rural development. Therefore, a full documentation package must be submitted. And then just remember, we only review the file. The lender's underwriter, the lender underwrites it. So be sure to document anything that we need to see or review. Be sure to always look at your findings report. A refer or refer with caution will generally tell you what it found: low credit score, bankruptcy, delinquent debts, etc. Review the file to determine if the borrower qualifies for loan with rural development prior to that final submission. A scorecard finding generally means that there are multiple layers for the refer: time at job, time at residence, limited credit, etc. So you'll want to look at the entire file always. I also suggest reviewing all data entries for accuracy. Although it's not required to enter assets into GUS, there are times that the additional assets may result in the GUS refer changing to a GUS accept. So be sure to confirm that the assets entered into GUS are documented assets and are in the lender's permanent loan file. This includes investments or retirement accounts such as a 401k. Refer with caution. You'll utilize page 2 of the attachment 15A, page 2 of 3. Upload the following into GUS: the RD Form 355521, the request for the single-family housing loan guarantee, your income calculation sheet, either the attachment 9B or the lender's income calculation sheet if you have one, your 1003 and 1008, your residential loan application, and your underwriting analysis forms, all the income and all the asset documentation. Your credit report will already be in there, but if there's a credit report for a non-purchasing spouse, if the property is located in a community property state, your verification of rent if applicable, your flood certification, your appraisal report. Remember, make sure that all the pages are there, they're legible, and that you've got color photos, and then any additional items if they're applicable. If you receive an ineligible recommendation, it could be due to some of the following things, that maybe GUS is unable to determine for the property address. This can come up with new construction or if GUS is struggling to locate the address. So be sure to really look at the map, double check the location, because unable to determine is not the same as an ineligible. If the property is not located in a rural area, it will come up as ineligible. But if you receive an unable to determine, you'll likely just need to dig a little bit deeper because it's possible the property could be in an eligible area. The adjusted annual household income exceeds rural development guidelines. Just double check your calculations and what you've input into GUS. And then also, will all the income included continue for all or part of the next 12 months? Look closely at your VOE. Maybe you've got it marked as a non-owner occupied transaction. We can only fund owner occupied transactions. They're not a qualified alien. Maybe you've got an unacceptable SAM. So if you get an ineligible SAM, the first place to look is, did you mark the box correctly? It's often that we see the yes box marked, and if the yes box is marked if it's marked yes in GUS for SAM, then it's going to be ineligible. Often we see that it's marked that the yes box is marked because the lenders think that the question is, did you check SAM? But the question is actually, has the borrower been debarred from doing business with the government? Maybe they have an unacceptable KVERS, or the debt to income ratio exceeds the limit set forth by rural development, and the borrower doesn't meet the requirements to qualify for a ratio waiver. So just be sure to double check your data entry into GUS to ensure your GUS underwriting recommendation is valid. GUS will generally tell you what the issue is, confirm that you have everything in correctly, and I just always remind garbage in, garbage out. There is one type of loan that has to be submitted manually, but you will start it in GUS. The Streamline Assist Refinance loans are not supported in GUS, therefore require a manual submission, as do any pilot loan programs that we have currently. We have a manual submission job aid located on our link training and resource library page under the loan origination tab. It will walk you through the process. Basically, you'll enter on the eligibility page the full property address and household income. On the borrower page, the first and last name of the primary applicant and social security number. You'll upload all required documents as indicated on the attachment 15A checklist on the application documentations page. At this point, you're going to stop. You do not order or reissue credit reports in GUS, and you'll not finalize the submission of the file either, because the applications are not fully supported in GUS. So once the documents are uploaded, then you're going to email the appropriate production team to let them know that you have manually submitted a file. And we recently consolidated the production teams, and to find the updated list, visit the View Contact Information button on the link Training and Resource Library page. When you send that email, you're going to want to include the GUS application ID number, the applicant's name, the property address, and then your return email from the production team will confirm the submission date. Some helpful tips when uploading documents into GUS: upload all required documentation prior to final submission, and be sure to double check your findings at the final submission to confirm if it's a full documentation file, review file. Missing or corrected documents may be uploaded after your final submission as long as the file still shows pending in GUS. If we have requested additional items, be sure to notify the agency once the requested documents have been uploaded for incomplete applications. GUS does not notify rural development when documents are uploaded after the final submission has been requested. Once rural development receives notification from the lender that the documents have been uploaded, the file will be processed in the order it was received. Submitting for final approval prior to uploading documents will not speed up the process. It's also helpful if all documents except for the appraisal are in one file following the attachment 15A if possible. And then again, a reminder that the appraisal needs to include color photos. It'll hold up your file if it doesn't. When creating a loan application, you can upload documents at any time before final submission. This may include an appraisal report, underwriting, or request for the guarantee. You'll select the Application Documents tab, select the type of document to upload, and select the Upload Files button, or utilize the Drop Files option to select a file from your system. Some tips when uploading files into GUS. Acceptable file formats are the Adobe PDF or TIFF. No password protected PDF files are allowed. Password protected documents are not permitted. The maximum file size is 100 megabytes. User must make a selection for type of document prior to adding files using the upload feature. Up to 10 individual documents can be uploaded at a time, and select the submit documents to attach documents to an application for submission to USDA. After selecting the Upload Files button or utilizing the drop-down Files option to select a file from your system, select the document to be uploaded, then select Open to start the upload process. And then you wait for the upload to complete and select Done when the upload is complete. Once uploaded, confirm they are all there and legible, then select the Submit Documents button. Then they will show up in the Submitted Documents section. The eye icon allows you to view the document. The first button brings you to the first page of results. The previous button takes you back one page. The next button moves you forward one page, and the last button takes you to the last page of the submitted documents. Some reminders I want to mention. You can continue to upload and submit documents even after final submission of the loan application as long as the application is in pending status. Only PDFs and TIFF files can be uploaded. The system allows for file upload up to 100 megabyte for most documents. And it may take several minutes for the upload process to complete and for the documents to be viewable. So just be patient. At the Documents tab, you'll see what documents have been uploaded and what documents are available for review. So when the conditional commitment and the loan note guarantee are issued, this is where they can be found as well. I always recommend checking this tab at submission to make sure all the documents have been uploaded successfully and that they're eligible. And if it's been a while and you're wondering about your conditional commitment, I always suggest checking here before you email rural development, because it's possible that the conditional commitment was uploaded and the email was missed. So when uploading files, try to consolidate if possible. I do recommend that supporting documents are consolidated and placed in the stacking order of the 15A checklist. Your appraisal should be the only document that is submitted as a standalone document. So this is an example. This loan had 18 files to open and review, and if they're each uploaded separately, it can take extra time during the review process. But again, there is a limit to file size, so if it's larger, you may need to break it into 2 or 3 sections or utilize the Reduce File Size tool in Adobe. If you break it into smaller sections, you'll want to still upload in the order that is outlined on the 15A checklist if possible. This is a great example of how a file submission should look. The underwriting and appraisal documents are submitted separately. And then again, on a side note, just make sure that the appraisal you upload has color photos. In GUS, you may also choose to generate and display the RD Form 355521, the Request for Single-Family Housing Loan Guarantee. You can pull this form directly from the Request Forms tab, and it will be auto-populated based on information available in GUS. This will ensure that you have the latest and greatest revision of the RD Form 3555 and that it matches GUS. To request the RD Form 3555, follow these steps. You're going to navigate to the the Request Forms tab. You're going to select the borrowers to be included on the RD Form 355521. And then you're going to select the Display Form button. And depending on your browser, the downloaded RD Form 355521 file will be available in the Downloads folder or otherwise available for selection. And just to note, up to 5 applicants can be selected when requesting the form, and the forms will print based on the information that was populated into GUS. Therefore, you just want to make sure that your data is accurate. The form will typically save and open as a pop-up. If the form does not open on your screen, check your browser pop-up settings and ensure pop-ups are enabled for this site. So let's take a couple minutes to talk about the RD Form 355521. This is the only RD-specific form that is required on every single file submission. If you don't print the RD Form 355521 in GUS, be sure to check the revision date in the upper left-hand corner and make sure that all 4 pages have the correct date on them. As of today, the most recent revision date is 08 of 22. Be sure to verify that all the information matches GUS. This form is one that will slow down your file if it's not correct. I always recommend that you do not save a PDF version on your desktop, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up using an old version of the file. It's going to happen. Many times what we see is the form is submitted with an old version of page 2, and that's the page that requires the borrower and the lender to sign. And then we'll see it with an old version of page 2 and then updated versions of the other pages. And that's going to hold up the file because you're going to have to get another signature from your borrower. We recommend that you separate closing costs from the purchase price or the refinance amount in Section 5 and GUS, and then also make sure that these numbers match GUS and any payoff documents. And then lastly, you just want to make sure everything on this form matches GUS. If it doesn't, it can cause a delay in your file. All right, how do you complete the 355521? So Section 1, you'll input the approved lender and or the third-party originator name and tax ID. So make sure that these are correct and that they match GUS. If there's no third-party originator, then that section will be left blank. Section 2, you're going to input the applicant and co-applicant data. And again, you can populate up to 5 applicants on the form. If there are more than 5, you will document them on additional 355521 and upload it into GUS. For non-GUS files, you document that GSA/SAM was checked, and if there are any exclusions. If this is a refinance, you'll indicate which type of loan you're refinancing, a direct or guaranteed, and which type of refinance your submission is, non-streamline, streamline, or streamline assist. And then finally, you're going to list the household member information on lines 2A and 2B, and the annual and adjusted annual household income on lines 3 and 3B. This needs to match your income calculation sheet as well as GUS. So now to Section 3, that's only required for manual non-GUS submissions. For these submission types, you'll break down the loan amount. For a purchase or refinance, verify the amount on this line item matches your purchase and sale agreement or your payoff. List the finance closing costs or any finance repairs, the guarantee fee, and the total being requested. This form must match GUS and any document submitted, and this form is one of the biggest reasons a file is delayed or returned to the lender. So just do a quick review of the data before your submission. Verify that all the data is correct and that it matches GUS, as well as check the revision date to ensure that all the pages are for the most recent form. So before we get into some of the common errors, I do want to point out that in addition to the GUS Lender User Guide, we also have a GUS File Import Guide, which is another great tool as you start learning to navigate GUS. Additionally, our GUS Help Desk is always available through email or toll-free number and can offer great support as well if you need it. So some common things that would cause a validation error are listed on this slide. So when you receive a validation error, you're going to want to double check your data and pay extra attention to fields required for preliminary versus final submissions. If the field is required for final but not yet filled in, you will get a validation error on the final submission. Errors must be corrected in order to successfully submit a file for final submission. Review the error which describes what needs to be corrected and on what page. If you're uncertain, you can reach out to the GUS Help Desk via email. They will create a ticket and assist with guidance to correct the error. You can tell if a field is required to save the page and if it's for preliminary or final submission by the letter or the asterisk next to the field, as shown on this slide. If these items are not complete, you will be unable to advance to the next page or submit for final. Next to each entry, there will be an asterisk if it's required, and an F or a P to tell you what phase of the application it's required in. Failure to complete the asterisk fields will prevent the user from advancing to the next page in the application. If you receive an XML import fail, it's a generic code, but some things to look for would be multiple dependent ages in the same field, that may be an age with a month. You always want to round up. If you have months included in the age, it will fail an import. You must also always input an actual note rate. You cannot use 0.00. And lastly, any text in a numeric field will cause an XML import failure as well. There are also character limitations to be aware of with GUS, which can cause an XML import failure. The dependent age must be listed as numeric and is limited to 2 characters. If the dependent is less than 1 year old, then you're going to round up to 1 year old. The MSA must be 5 characters. NA will cause an error. The loan originator's address is limited to 35 characters on each line and 11 characters for the unit number. The lender and or TPO tax ID numbers are not auto-populated and they are limited to 9 characters. Therefore, you do not include the dash. The lender loan numbers cannot exceed 15 characters and liability account numbers cannot exceed 30 characters. If you receive an XML import failure that you are unable to resolve by reviewing the listed items, scroll to the bottom of the page and take a screenshot of all the error messages and send them to the help desk. All of them. If there's 3 error messages and you only send us 2, then we're not getting the whole picture. So make sure that you send a screenshot of every one of the error messages. It's common for the help desk to receive a screenshot that doesn't include the entire message or all of them. So if there's more than 1 error message, make sure that all the information is captured and sent to the help desk along with your contact information. This will assist them in determining the cause of the error. For schema validation errors, you're going to start by checking your character fields. A common issue is if numbers are input into character fields or if characters are input into numeric fields. Make sure you are exporting a ULAD MISMO 3.4 file from your LOS. Check for special characters that are not allowed for import. If character fields are correct, it could be that the loan origination software is not creating an XML file to the DU specs. A few items that can bring ineligible findings are incorrect or invalid KVERS numbers. Now, KVERS is typically pulled in GUS, however, the integration has strict business hours and is not always available. So if KVERS cannot be pulled in GUS, then you must manually enter a number retrieved outside of the system. If the property is showing as ineligible, you should verify the property address. You can do this at USPS.com. Look for street name spelling, street directions like northeast, southeast, west, etc. Street types like loop, circle, place, and make sure your city, state, and zip code are correct. I cover this a little bit more on the next slide. Finally, another error would be incorrect SAM response. This can cause an ineligible finding as well. So you can check the property and income eligibility outside of GUS before getting started with a new loan file or on our eligibility page. So for income, you can either select the income eligibility tab or just the income limits, then select the area that your borrower was in. New construction can be tricky and can at times come up as ineligible because the address may not be available yet. So if that happens, then you just use the zoom in feature on the map and locate the property manually. If you can't locate it with the property address, you can select the state and zoom in, or you can just use the zoom in tool on the left. But once you have located the property and that you confirm it's eligible or in an eligible area, you're going to want to use the pin icon to pin it on the map. And then it's also recommended that you submit a copy of the map with the pin to assist rural development with their review of the file for determining eligibility. So be sure to fill out the SAM information on the Additional Data tab. If there are no SAM findings, you mark the box No to indicate that the borrower has not been debarred from business with the federal government. If this box is marked Yes, you will get an ineligible response. Liabilities are populated into GUS when the credit report is pulled in from your LOS when the file is imported. The lender must pull in the credit report using the Fannie Mae interface on the Credit Underwriting tab by using the reference number, username, and password. Liabilities that are not on the credit report must be manually input into your LOS and transferred over or directly input directly into GUS. You will populate liabilities in your LOS and then import the file with liabilities into GUS. And when credit is uploaded in GUS after being imported from the LOS, it will require that you manually update and input any changes. It does not automatically upload the new information if you do an update. When the validate application function can be used just prior to preliminary or final submission, it'll show you any errors on each page as you go through the application process. So when you select validate application, at each page it'll show you if there's any errors. Once the updates are made, be sure to close the validation tab because it opens a new tab each time you validate the application. Examples of errors could be missing date of birth or the date of birth was entered incorrectly, missing a credit report, the income is not input or it's not input correctly, your PITI ratio is incorrect. And next to the blue icon, it shows the page or the tab where the error is located. So if it's preliminary or final submission, and then it also shows a short description of the error as well. If you receive a credit report failure message, this is actually returned by the Fannie Mae credit interface, typically relayed from the specific credit vendor requested by the lender on the credit underwriting page in GUS. These errors are not returned by GUS, and users should only contact the GUS help desk after checking user data inputs such as credit report, your reference number, your credit vendor, your account number, and or your credit vendor, your login and your password. Also the borrower name, social security number, the address, etc. Just confirm that there are no errors. This error can come up for both new credit reports being pulled into GUS and reports that are being reissued in GUS. So if you receive this message, check your login credentials. You should be using the same login and password as you would on the vendor's website. Updates to an existing application are permitted in GUS using the file import feature. This is a time-saving tool that was implemented in early 2022. The feature allows users to update information in GUS without manually keying in each change, eliminating duplicate data entry and the frequency of errors. The lender must ensure the lender loan number recorded in their LOS system matches the lender loan number on the existing application in GUS prior to updating an existing application via the file import. Due to IR or intelligent replacement, the proprietary USDA data that exists in the system will not be underwritten during the file import update. This is because this data does not exist in the XML file, and we didn't want users to have to manually key in USDA data more than one time. So when contacting the GUS help desk, make sure that you include your lender and your third-party originator name, if there is one, a screenshot of all the error messages, full name of the user that is having the issue, your GUS application ID if one has been created. For file import failures, also include the date and time of the attempted file import. And then also just to note, multiple emails and calls, they can cause delays in response time. Therefore, we just request that you limit calls and emails. We typically respond within 24 hours or less. And so you just need to send one email or make one call, and we will get back to you on it. So I'm going to wrap up with some useful tools. We have a lot of tools available for our lenders. Here on the link training or the link training resource library page, you can find a direct link to our handbook and our code of federal regulations. It's under the loan origination tab on the link training resource library page. Be sure, though, to open up the Handbook 13555, the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Program Technical Handbook. I always like to point out that the Handbook 3550 is actually for our direct program, and it has different guidance that's a little bit more restrictive. So make sure that you're only opening the Handbook 13555. This is actually one of my favorite documents. You can find it under the Loan Origination tab on the Link Training and Resource Library page, and it's actually a living document, meaning we update it regularly, so do not save it on your desktop. Maybe save a link to it if you want to, but it'll open in a PDF format, so if you hit Control F, you can search for a specific topic. And I refer to this document probably 3 to 4 times a week because it's got some little additional like Q&A that has come up that's maybe getting more details than the handbook or a little bit more guidance. This is really an awesome document. And then this is a definite bookmark. You can get to the handbook here from the Link Training and Resource Library page, but we also have oodles of training available. Our contact information is on this site under as well. And then under the Loan Origination tab, we have numerous resources. You can also scroll to the bottom and see all the Gov delivery notices. And if you haven't already signed up to receive our Gov delivery notices, I highly recommend that as well. That's how you're notified of changes to the program, upcoming trainings, just anything RD. This is the information on the new Guaranteed Loan Program Policy Desk. You can access this through the Link Training and Resource Library page as well. The Policy Desk is a great place that gives stakeholders a voice in shaping policy. Here you can find upcoming handbook revisions, open for comment, and archives of previous proposals. So this is one that you want to bookmark as well, or just access through the Link Training and Resource Library page. We're also excited that we have our training schedule posted on the Link Training and Resource Library page as well. You can see upcoming training and sign up when the link becomes live. I personally like to save space on my calendar, so if there's a training that I'm interested in, I'll put a hold on my calendar so that I have it saved prior to the Gov delivery notice coming out, so that ensures that I'm able to attend. I said it before, but be sure to subscribe to our Gov delivery notices. This will keep you up to date on program changes, upcoming trainings, and basically anything RD. Users should first look for answers to their questions in the regulation and the handbook, but if you still have a question after reviewing your resources, we're here to help. All policy and regulation questions would be sent to our Policy Analysis and Communication branch. That includes like general loan scenario questions. And then if you'd like to request additional program training, you would contact our Lender and Partner Activities branch. That's my team. That's what we're here for. So we have a QR code here on this slide for our website. I would encourage you to take a quick snap of it if you didn't already. But this will keep you current on our website. And pretty much that's what I have for the training. That's it. I want to say thank you for taking the time out today. I ended a little bit early, so you get a little bit of your day back. But thank you, and hopefully you found this helpful. Have a great day.